Hi everybody, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the non-series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity, where I have had this channel since 2007 talking about portrayals in the media that portray experiences for some conditions, disorders for others, of living with more than one, or what some people used to call multiple personality, and now is called by medical and psychiatric folks DID, dissociative identity disorder. It is an experience for everyone that is unique. It is thought to be in a medical trauma model to be traumas that folks have had between the ages of 0 to 6, when their personality is not even formed yet. They're just a blank canvas, a sponge taking everything in, and they become very frightened out of their mind, and they need to survive. And so they create exactly what they need to survive, and that might be a doll that comforts them, a stuffed animal with a name, a friend down the street who's their best buddy, a cartoon figure that has superpowers, a matronly grandparent, or an authoritative figure in their family, or somebody that they know, a nickname that has been called to somebody that they know that is older that can help them. So it's really the development of another persona, alter, creation, ego, some say fragment. But what happens is, and nobody really knows for sure how this happens, so I don't like to apply concrete meanings to things. I like to look at it very spiritually, but I don't over spiritualize it, or God help me ever put Christianese on it, because that's just too complicated. It just narrows God down and us as human beings. It's very, very simple. We're all created. Go watch the Astrid modality on my channel, and you'll see what I think about multiple personality. And when I say I don't believe in it, I'm not saying I don't believe in people's experience of having been diagnosed multiple, because I was diagnosed in 1986 and I've lived my life with more than one. But does it have to be disordered? Does it have to be unfunctional, dysfunctional, and pathologized, and sensationalized, and demonized, and criminalized? No. Do you have to fear it? No. You have to accept ownership for every emotion you have, every feeling you have, and every experience you've gone through. Do you need every little detail of a memory? No. You just need to acknowledge where you were in that situation and who was with you, and then forgive. And does that mean you forget? No. And I think we've been confusing forgiveness with forgetting for a long time. So I want to talk about that. It's very important to our soul's progression in eternity that we forgive. Forgiveness doesn't look like, I'm just going to forget it and keep rolling with the day and just keep moving forward. You know, the buzzword, moving forward, right? Well, some of us can't move forward. We're stuck in that trauma because there's a memory on a back burner somewhere that keeps getting triggered, boiling over, and we don't want to address it. We keep turning down the heat and putting it on a back burner and putting a lid on it. Okay? Now, if we look at our brains, as we're told in psychology, or from the learned people that created the name multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, if we look at all these experiences, what we see is they all overlap. It's normal to have moments during the day where we all just check out. Driving on a freeway, we know our way home from work, we go into what? Road. We drive home and we're like, did you remember every car on the road? Did you remember when the sun exactly hit the horizon and then you went dark? Do you remember how many times you passed a McDonald's? Do you remember every little bit of it? Heck no. Okay, so when you come out of the experience, you're like, I don't even remember driving home. Do you remember everything you ate yesterday, the day before, the day before that, the day before that, the day before that, the day before that? 7 days? Can you remember for 7 days what you ate? Maybe if you ate the same thing every day, maybe if you were on a diet and you were on a meal plan and you knew every day I have peanut butter and jelly for lunch, every day I have a salad for dinner, every day I have fruit for breakfast, and you never swayed from that, you could remember it, right? But when we go do our own thing and when we don't stay structured like that, it can be hard to remember. We don't remember everything. Do you remember what you wore every day? Do you remember I wore the blue shirt with my, maybe if you only had 4 outfits, so I would say if maybe at work you had a uniform. So we don't, there's things we lose. And that is often confused with lost time when you go to see a doctor. And I'm kind of smiling because when I finally speak the truth and say something, I'm getting 222, 555, 666. I'm just stopping at that moment. Like when I punctuate, it's going on that, which is really kind of a cool thing, which I'll explain to you later. But suffice to say, I've been out here since 2007 speaking about the truth about multiple personality disorder, or what used to be called hysteria. Before that, what was called demon possession, or malingering, attention getting, or melodrama, or just plain crazy, okay? And we've seen it in the movies for years being portrayed as the crazy. Why? Because people need it to be the crazy. What do people want to watch? They don't want to watch you be okay, well. They want to come out here and see you being perfectly fine. You will have a very boring channel. People sign up for the crazy. They want to see other people act crazy. Proof of that is when United States of Terror came out, a story about a woman, a mother, a, a daughter, a sister, a wife, and an artist in her community who was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, once called multiple personality disorder. When that show came out on Showtime, Steven Spielberg and Diablo Cody hoped to show that it was more normal than abnormal, that we're all a little bit multiple or with more than one. And actually, what he was looking at, and his wife, Kate Capshaw, was the directing process in acting and how they'd seen so many actors and actresses take on roles for scenes and parts and not be able to give up certain aspects of that character. So how is that alike and different than post-traumatic stress, gone off the Richter scale, to complex post-traumatic stress, to suddenly having another alter persona aspect of oneself, and then entering a fugue state or loss of time and switching back and forth and not being aware of one's behavior. How does that all gel together? So he wanted to look at a dramedy, the dark humor of it, not to run it off the train track like they ended up doing, but to really kind of humanize it. And that was going good for the first season of Showtime of United States of Terror. Toni Collette played Tara, and as she got more and more alters that they showed the audience, and the family interacted with the alters, personas, egos, and her sister and her parents and the community and the doctors. They really were telling the story of actually a community of people that had been sharing on the internet what their experience was like being diagnosed with multiple personality in the 80s, and then it being called dissociative identity disorder, DID, in the 90s. When the show was its craziest, the ratings were sky high. When the writers would get into the room, and it would be like a war room, because the writers would be like, no, we don't want the alters doing this. That's not what they do. We don't want Tara reacting that way. That's not what people do. No, she wouldn't do that. No. We had people that really were diagnosed with multiple personality back in the day, and then dissociative identity disorder, who were sharing their experiences, who were saying, no, it's not how it is. You're you're making it more, you're making the stigma more. Leah Peterson was a specialist writer consultant. She was diagnosed with DID, and she was integrated in time to become a writer for the show. But it's important to say that Leah Peterson was diagnosed with many, many things, and she was very, it was the integration was very new to her, and a lot has changed with Leah's life since then. So it's an experience. It's not a disorder that's going to forever be. And I really wanted to share that. So every episode I came out and I shared what was going on with the United States of Care, and we had discussion out here, and it was great. We had a really great community. I had over 1,000 subscribers. There were only about 3 people talking about being diagnosed and what it was like daily. Out of those 3, two passed away. There, we hung out with truthers. People talked about MPD, DID right alongside talking about the Illuminati and MK Ultra and ritualistic abuse, and everybody had their own story. Everybody honored people's stories, but encouraged people to continue to move forward. And I started writing my own story. It's called Talking Houses back in 2003. And I revised it a million times to keep the story relevant to the truth. Truth is, we're all born with the ability to co-create whatever we need. Truth is, if we believe in God, whatever we believe God to be, God is plural. And God is a creator. God is the creator of all things. Okay, so if we're born in God's image, we're born plural. And when we're born, and then you talk to a psychiatrist, doctor, when a baby is born, why is it 0 to 6 that it happens? Because the personality is not formed yet. It's not gelled together. You haven't gotten your concrete things together and decided, you're pulling from everything. It's like being in college, liberal arts, saying, I don't know what I want. You're like, oh, I like what my grandmother does. I want a little of that. My aunt's really cool. She's cool. I like her. I dig how she acts around people. She's cool. I want to be like my aunt. Oh, I really love that my mother does that. I really love my grandmother's house. Oh, I like the way this one cooks, or I like the way this one dresses. I want my body to be this way. You're pulling from all this stuff as you grow up. By the time you get to kindergarten, you're figuring it out. Does this work in a social setting with a bigger, larger group? And believe me, your teachers are figuring out, is their child working with the circle time? Are they having nap time and circle time? Are they getting that, A is for apple and B is for ball? Are they getting it? So by kindergarten. But we keep growing. Our brains keep growing. Our hearts keep growing. Our souls keep progressing and developing, evolving. So my entire channel has been about that, and my book is about that. And I had the most interesting conversation with a publisher yesterday from Trilogy Publishing, who was very, very generous in listening to my story. But I had to explain to her that in my story, it involved a lot of energy, and energy that was left at houses where I had memories that I disconnected from. But I kept remembering them, and triggering those triggers kept bringing up memories of those houses, and I needed to go back. And I was trying to explain to her that my actual healing came in with God, yes, but in going back to those houses, which I named talking houses, because if you're in a home where there is domestic violence going on, or abuse, or terrible trauma happens, and all of a sudden you stop, you go inside yourself, and you hold your breath, and you create what you need to survive. If you go back to that house, it's all going to rush back to you. And you're going to be able to, there's energy still there connected to your brain and your memory, your body memories and everything. So, my book looks at every house I lived in and how I needed to actually go back to the first home I was brought to when I was born. And I needed to go back to all the homes I lived in and kind of retrace everything and then own it and be okay with that. Makes me angry, that makes me sad, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, I feel guilty there, I feel like I was wrong there, I was too, oh, why did I do that? We need to own our own stuff and be accountable for what we did too. And a lot of people are like, well, I was abused, I didn't do anything about it. No. Don't blame it on your altars when you're like, oh, well, this altar does that. No. Start owning what your altars do. Start saying, you know what? It's not my altar that does that. It's me. It's not my altar or my alter ego that wants to be flirtatious right now or carefree. It's me. It's not my altar that wants to act like a little kid and sit in the sand and pout. It's me. It's me. And maybe you got disconnected from that little girl that wanted to pout, or maybe you got disconnected from that little boy and little girl that wants to rant and rave. And don't go and blame it on your altar. Own it. It's about accountability. So I have been talking about how that's how I came to my own functioning and order again and smooth riding with others, aware of them, but not disconnecting and first of all, we don't lose time. If we're all going to be honest with each other, if you did lose time, what were you drinking? Nobody loses time. No, we don't lose time. Is it true amnesia? Be true to yourself. Is it really amnesia? You remember part, but not all. You remember it's normal to have gaps in your memory. It's normal to not want to remember when we act wrong, when we act what we can't accept, right? When we say words we don't want to believe we said, like, oh, I said some nasty stuff. It's normal to then all of a sudden be like, I don't remember that. Do you think when a 2-year-old child is in a tantrum, they remember why they're tantruming or their exact behavior? Okay, think of your alters as a meltdown. Your alter's having a meltdown and doing whatever the heck they want to do. And you're disconnected from it. You just switched and you don't know, right? This is what psychiatry wants you to believe. Psychiatry wants you to believe that if you're diagnosed with DID, you have other alters and you're not going to remember what you're doing from 1 minute to the next because other alters are going to take over and come out and take over your life. And that is just utter bull crap, but it makes money for therapists and psychiatry. And then be real about when you're in the therapeutic process, you're unloading a lot of crap, a lot of hurtful memories and trauma and stuff that makes you feel sick physically. Aren't you taking medications then? Are some of you drinking? Are some of you taking drugs? Where's the real blackout coming from? The sedatives you're taking, the Ambien at night, the antidepressant, the drug that just is kind of making you. So we need to be honest about that. And that's what this channel, that's what my book hoped to be, but looking at media. And what I wanted to get back to is the United States of Terror. If you look, you'll see that the show was canceled when it stopped being so crazy. When the writers finally brought it to, geez, Tara makes more sense than her family. She's actually quite sane. And with all of her alters, she makes more sense. And without them, she doesn't. Why? Because she developed naturally with them. They are her personality. Not split up. They're her personality. Okay, so in United States of Terror, they covered coexistence, co-running, co-consciousness, and being able to talk to your inner selves, negotiating, journal writing, sharing time, which is co-consciousness and co-running. They covered how integration often is just it's a wish and a fairy tale. Nobody knows what it really looks like, but it's the medical trauma model cure, and they can make a lot of money trying to get you and me integrated. But what is true integration? Living with all that you are and not denying it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when Tara started to make sense, the viewership went down. And it only takes 2 shows for the viewership to go down, to drop a show completely. Because people wanted the crazy. And Tara and the alters weren't crazy. Suddenly they were making sense. They were outing their family. They were saying, oh, no. This one did that, and that one did this, and I feel this way, and it's normal for me to feel this way. So that was my whole channel from 2007 until about 2014, 15, and then for the sake of my my family and my biological, my children, I gave it a little rest. But I will be coming out in the new year and talking about so many things. And I've decided instead of waiting for the publisher that wants my books, to start just reading my books out here. So I will be reading installments of the Talking Houses, and then if anybody has questions, so join me here for Talking Houses. I may be changing the name of this channel to Talking Houses. I don't know yet. Happy December. I hope everyone had a really beautiful Thanksgiving and are in sunshine somewhere and not so much snow everywhere and wind and blusteriness. But the snow is kind of pretty to look at. I've got to be in it. I hope everybody feels well and is getting their errands done and getting through this crazy year and on to the next year. I wanted to talk about a couple of real. Every time I go to stop, I get a cover like do. Okay. I'm at 22. Don't let anybody adjust your reality. Do not adjust your experience to what you see on the internet and communities. Do not be part of the playground mentality on the internet where you gotta be with the cool kids, so you have to adjust your reality. Stay true to being you, who you are. Stay true to you. Be you, right? Get back to being you. There's so many people being everything out here on the internet that you could be anything you want to be out here. There's so many people when did it become a show and tell world? That's what we are, a show and tell world. And a lot of us are often thinking, I don't have anything to show good enough or to tell. And they're making up shit. It's true. It's true. There are a lot of people that are role playing and they've got their Patreon pages, and you're paying and you're asking them to deliver the crazy. You're asking them for content that really doesn't exist. Patron pages work as I would use it for like knitting. Like I knit, I crochet. I have Biash and Klutz knitting and crochet. You can find my channel on my channel page under featured channels. I have 3 channels there. Biash and Klutz knitting and crochet, where I do patterns and I knit and I crochet. And then I have flower species, one word, where it's all random, just random hobbies. And then I have agita news, where I'm talking about those news stories that get dropped off because there's breaking news. But what happened to that other breaking news? So I kind of cleaned up my playlist here and moved everything around to a new channel. So there's agita news, flower species, and Biash and Klutz knitting and crochet. I am kind of bitchy when I knit and I crochet, and I am very klutzy. It's just true. It's what I am. And I'm a big fan of Bitch and Stitch Nation knitting patterns. So evidently there were too many bitchery stitchery blogs, so I changed it to Biash. And I show you all my mistakes. If I drop a bunch of stitches, or I get tangled up in my yarn, or I forget what row I'm on, or I just totally screw up. I show you all my mistakes. I don't edit it. It's not perfect. I don't have perfect lighting, as you can see. I don't have a camera over my head behind me that can get on my hands perfectly. So I just knit and crochet and tat and embroider. So you can go there if you'd like. I'd love to have you there. All of my subscribers are mostly here, and I have deliberately stayed away from giving too much content out here because there's so much over awareness and over education that I didn't want to overdo. But I do want to talk about, because I think over awareness and over education is part of what added to the stigma and the perpetuation of myths in the media regarding labels, labels, labels. And remember again, pathology and recovery creates profit. Recovery and pathology creates profit. Being healed doesn't make money for anybody, does it? Being ordinary doesn't. Nobody's going to watch ordinary. They want to watch crazy. Crazy makes the money, okay? So remember that when you're assigning labels to yourself, when you're allowing people to assign chronic disease and chronic this and chronic that and alphabet soup, ADD, BID, MPD, bipolar 1, 2, 3, mixed, schizoid affective disorder, autistic spectrum. These are all human behaviors that overlap, that sometimes get amplified and interrupt our living and others' living. But it doesn't have to be that way forever. It's not a condition that has to be that way forever. Even schizophrenia, people can function with, go to work with, and be fine with. There's so many things that we don't know that we pretend we do know through science, and it's not there yet. Okay, so remember, what we name, we create. What we name, we create. When we name something, we have created it. We can breathe life into it just by naming it. We can apply meanings to it and give it a whole bunch of meanings it doesn't have. To be careful with that. All right. My 2 books for multiple community, DID community, post-traumatic stress community are these: A Warning by Anonymous and Prince, the Beautiful Ones. Now, some of you may not know this, but some of you kind of really do know this because he hung out in the multiple community. Prince was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder in the late 80s and again in the 90s, dissociative identity disorder. He went into therapy with, I can't say who. He went into therapy with a person, and actually 2 of his proteges were diagnosed with multiple personality in the 80s. And then somebody he was very close to, went into therapy with, was diagnosed with DID in the 90s. They changed the name. Okay. And while in therapy with this person, they diagnosed him with it again. And it made perfect sense to him. It's not a disorder. It's not crazy. Sometimes he schlepped it off to being a Gemini. But this book is the book he was writing of his life when he died because he was poisoned for months and then he was murdered. And he always knew this was going to happen. Okay? This is his final book, which didn't get completed, but you can see from the beginning how he goes back to all of his houses and actually talks about how he got his name and who he became. He looks at things like, I don't want to earmark anything in this. The book is the quality of a coffee table book. All of his writing is in here. All of his journaling is in here. All of his, he went back to really didn't want to do that. He went back and got all of his report cards. He retraced his life. He went back to his first car, first house he lived in, because he lived many places and he was with many. Right, he was called by many names. He had many caretakers. Here you go, my first house. The lighting isn't good in here. Hold straight. He writes my first house there. Okay. He was in search of himself. He stripped down his music at piano and microphone tour. He was stripping down his music and going back to the child Prince who learned to play the piano all by himself. And he was telling stories to the audience. He was being very intimate, and he was acting out things that happened to him in his life in piano and microphone tour. He really was. He was coming full circle. So he never thought of himself as disordered or weird or anything. It made sense to him that when he was younger, he went through some tough times and created what he needed. To give you an example, a lot of people talk about Prince's half brothers, half sisters, and then his real sister. Okay. Prince never did that. When Prince was born, he was born to a mother and a father who his father already had children and a family, 3 girls, and well, 4, and I think I got that right. I'll double check my number in a minute and their names, and because it was a large family. He was born in 1958 all right, let me just put it this way. His father was married to Vivian. They had 3 children together, I believe 3. 3 together. I gotta think of who passed away, unfortunately. His father had a previous family. I'll get it right in a minute. His father had a previous family. Okay, met his mother, Maddie Shaw, who already has a son from a previous relationship. So Alfred, when Prince was born, Alfred already lived there. Alfred was his older brother over here. Prince is born, first son to Maddie and John. First son. First son. Maddie already has an older son over here. Prince looked up to Alfred. Very much looked up to him. He went to Vietnam. He was oldest brother. What would he know? Would he know him to be anything but his brother? His brother. Lived in the same house. Brother. Okay. Over here, his father's other family, who he knew as his sisters. Would he know them as anything else? They were his sisters. 1 year after Prince was born, in 1959, Duane was born because his father went back to Vivian and had another baby, a boy. And at that point, the 2 boys were kind of like pitted against each other, kind of like trying to get attention in their father's eye and win their father's love. Like one was 1 and 1 was 2. Okay, so Duane, and that's important because Duane and Prince were very close, but then he had a falling out before Duane passed away before Prince. So that's all important. So he does. You can see how he felt like he was really trying to win a place in his father's world, and what he did. And then his mother and his stepfather had 1 more son together. Okay, so where did he belong? He was called. See, Prince is writing on the pictures. Okay. That's 1960. He was born in 1958. He did what we all do. Those of us that have gone back and looked at the those of us that have been in therapy have had to go back and find all of us, and we've had to create our map our system. And haven't we gone back and looked at the pictures of when we were younger and what house we lived in, our report cards and names and everything? It shows us right here. Even people wrote to him and called him Skipper Nelson Baker. He was also known as Prince Rogers Nelson. There was this duality from the beginning that he just accepted. He also was named after his father's trio band, which, look at that, a whole new concept in music with the Prince Rogers Trio band. He became the band. He became a one-man band to get others' attention. He learned how to play all those instruments. He started at the piano. Okay. The book also shows how Reverend Denise, the late Reverend Denise Matthews, aka Vanity, and Prince actually did write Purple Rain. It had a different title, and it's all in here. And they both took their alter personas, or what they thought they were, and fleshed them out in a story. This book is worth so much more money than what they're selling it for. The original $19.99 is there. I won't show you it all. He did the cover art for all of his albums. Later, people started helping him with cover art, but he had the final say. Every person in all of his bands, Revolution, The Family, New Power Generation 1, 2, everything, it was in his head. It was part of his utopian little world in his head. And every person that he allowed into his world served a purpose. His sister Taika is right about several things. She was helping him get his stuff together for this book. She helped him get all of his pictures together from photo albums, from their family photo albums, and retrace his history. His favorite color really was orange and maroon, and talks about how the color purple was used as a brand for him. He loved orange. He loved maroon. He loved black and white. And he started to get back to that in his, as he got into adulthood. So it's really important. And I could see how he became a Jehovah's Witness and even used it as a safety net of sorts. I could see how a lot of knowledge and having what he called the knowledge room, because Jehovah's Witnesses have a ton of books. Believe me, my father and my stepmother were Jehovah's Witnesses, and I studied with them for years. They have book upon book upon book of how to espouse on a scripture and reason with a scripture and talk you out of what you think you know to be true and give you more truth. And some of it is true. And really Prince understood that it was more truth. It wasn't the whole truth. It was a little more truth, but it wasn't the whole truth. And I remember when I was diagnosed, many fundamentalist Christian churches or born-again Christian churches or non-denominational churches went right to that's demonic possession. Get away from those psychiatrists. Just, come get delivered. We're going to throw some holy oil on you, and we're going to pray over you, and we're going to bop you in the head. You're going to go into the spirit, and we're going to do all this. Whatever. We're going to do all this, and you're going to be well, but don't, get that crap, right? But when I explained to the Jehovah's Witnesses that I was diagnosed, they were like, "Oh, that makes sense." Like, so what? So what? They didn't try to pray it away. Okay? So it makes perfect sense to me that the Prince would hang out with a bunch of. They really didn't care. As long as you, it's sort of like Mormons. Okay, as long as you're not smoking, drinking coffee or tea or wine outwardly, You could still be a Mormon. You're never going to get off that list. They're sort of like the FBI. If you got baptized a Mormon, man, they're going to keep sending you birthday cards, invitations. They're going to keep sending the elders and missionaries. You never get off that list. It's the same way with Jehovah's Witnesses. You become a member for life. You can get this fellowship, but you're still somebody they're going to come check on. And come try to reason with you, see how you're doing. He needed that safety net. He got dropped off in all the little fundy things when it was called something it wasn't in Seventh-day Adventist churches and different churches. Okay, so it's really kind of cool to see how Vanity, aka Vanity, and him wrote up Purple Rain about really just them. It was just about her, him, the band Revolution, and how this kid and Skipper made it to the top. Okay. And how he also won his father's love and what he came out of and all the flashbacks they show in Purple Rain. It was all in the story. And they wrote their story. And he fleshed out all the characters. Morris Day. Morris Day was a creation. Morris Day in Purple Rain, and the time was an entire creation in Prince's head. Okay. Twins were very important to Prince. And he did hang out with twins a lot. It wasn't just a Playboy Hugh Hefner thing. Twins are very important in Hollywood. I'll explain later. These are all the people that they fleshed out. He did this work, but and he kept going towards women that were able to create, like Mayte, Garcia, and he wanted people that constantly could create around him. There's so much I could say about Prince, but I won't. There was nothing little about this man. He was very large in life, larger in his death, and making a lot of money for people being dead. What I'm going to say about that. Get this book, $17.80 at Amazon. Oh, and the quality, it's like wallpaper. It's like embossed wallpaper. Yes, it's not all Prince words they had to fill in, but he met with the writer that filled in. I'll say his name real quick here. Dan Pippenbring. He met with him enough that he knew the synopsis of where Prince wanted to go, and it really did stay true to that. So, look at that. If you read no other book this year before January, or if you get no other book this year, I'm going to tell you 2 books to get. Get Unhinged by Omarasa and A Warning by Anonymous by a senior White House official. And you'll understand that the president that is in office, the Donald, is the name of a system group. Yeah, I said that. Donald Trump is more than one. Yeah, I know. People are like, oh, you just think everyone is multiple. No. It's more normal than abnormal. Donald Trump is running around with a whole system group right now. There's Citizen Donald Trump. There's Showman Donald Trump. There's Little Donald Trump. There's Playboy Donald Trump. There's Real Estate Monger Donald Trump. Art of the Deal Donald Trump. Businessman Donald Trump. Money, money, money. And then there's trying to act like a president Donald Trump. There's so many Donalds. What this book does not trash Trump. It trashes the government as it is right now. It says this government doesn't work. There is no such thing as democracy. It actually feeds into the deep state theories. It's kind of along the lines of shadow gov, deep state cabal, all that, by asking who the heck is running the country, the same question Omarasa asked, is a lover or hater. She's known Donald Trump for 15 years in many different roles and capacities. What's going on and who's really running the country? Because wait, you're Donald saying this, but then he snatches it back and he says that, and he acts totally different. That's what this book is about. More than that, it's a warning. It's a warning that whoever we pick as a candidate doesn't really mean anything, because there is an entire shadow gov behind the curtain that's running the scenes. And when the candidate doesn't get informed and in line, he becomes unhinged, he or she. Okay? So it's showing in this book, more than anything, this president isn't staying with the program. He's doing his own thing. But he doesn't understand. There's a program he has to follow. He doesn't understand. There's a whole government that's trying to change. Basically, we're being bought and we're being sold a theory that Americans still want apple pie, but they don't want apple pie. Okay? And there is a global nationalist spiritual agenda that has to go forth. And love him or hate him, Donald Trump, he's in the seat right now. He's in the hot seat. Okay, so this is all about that. This is not a cowardly book. This is a brave book. This writer will come forward and bring more people with when she comes out. I do agree with Omarasa. I think coming very close to the vice president's office is a person that is not cowardly at all. It is up there with whistleblowing, but it's whistleblowing on the whole country, on the government. It whistleblows on the government. More than anything, what I took away is it shows Donald Trump and the many facets of his personality and aspects and alters and egos, and how the Donald works if you let the Donald work. If you try to change the Donald, don't let Donald be the Donald, it all becomes undone. Because he works with more than one. There's more than one of him running there. Just like there was more than one Prince with Prince. More than one. Okay? Because why? We all run around with more than one often, and we're not aware of it. And it's not as disordered as I would think. It's really quite wonderful. Okay? All right, that's all I want to say to you guys. If you're looking for some cool Christmas reads, go to your local library and look up Ideals magazine. I'm going to do a whole other video on this on my other channel. I think I'm going to do it on Flower Species channel. I want to show you some really vintage old Christmas illustrations and cool things. Just if you're having a tough time getting in the spirit, I always come to these little books, and these are magazines that were put out back in the day that I collect. Very beautiful old magazines. I think the first ones were in the 40s and then 50s and 60s, and they were given out free. It was called Ideals. And every Christmas, every Easter, the big holidays, and it eventually became guideposts. And then look at some of these illustrations. Really beautiful. Really vintage, yesteryear kind of stuff that I'm always drawn to. And so I thought I would share some of my favorite things that you're just never going to really see from back in the day. So that's just off the cuff, random. So I'm going to go put it over on Flower Species channel. But happy Tuesday. I hope everyone will pick up these books. And if you're going to read Prince's book, please get over there. Mayte Garcia's book, the most beautiful, Prince's first wife. Please get her book. And then this will make total sense. Right? If you read Unhinged by Omarasa, this book will make, they validate each other. They really do validate. And all the books that are coming out of the White House right now from people that resigned or need to resign or got fired on Friday or whatever, or fired, whatever, people that went to jail, whatever, all the people that are writing their books, this is nothing we didn't know. They all They all validate, but it's interesting to see the things that they validate come back to there's more than one Donald. And who's running the country? So, there you go. Right? And Mayte's book definitely confirms a lot of what Prince was saying. Most beautiful. Get that one with it. What's the other book? So many books. I have a few others I'll talk about on the Flower Species channel because they're not really about, well, these aren't really about multiplicity, but these authors were multiple. Not the authors, the people that are writing, the author, people that are being written about here, okay? The person. So I thought I would bring it to this channel. Okay, I gotta go do my day now. Thanks for dropping in. If you did, have a great day. Bye.